Right, just so you don't have to sit through this entire video, the one tip that I have is just that networking is what got me my job. And that's all it is. If you don't want to watch the rest of the video, you can cancel out of this right now. But if you do want to know more about how networking got me my current job that I love, just stick around and I'll explain. This will be a good one. I'm John Hang, and I'm a software engineer in Richmond, Virginia. I've been making videos for about 2 months now, and if you've seen a few of them, you'll have seen that a bunch of them are set actually in my office. And that's mostly because I actually really like being at work, and that's one of the crazy things that I didn't know if I would ever have, like being at a job that I actually love being at. Being at work is slightly relaxing and slightly challenging, and that's kind of fun. So I've been at this job for about 2 years now, and me getting here wasn't exactly that straightforward, and I wanted to sort of explain how I got here. So here goes. So this is actually my 4th job out of college, and funny enough is that I've actually interviewed at this company twice, each interview being a year apart. Before I get into that, let me just back up to my very first job out of college. So my very first job was at a small consulting agency, about 20 people, and I had been there for about 2 years. All of my coworkers were about twice my age. This was my first job out of college, so this was me just sort of getting my feet wet into programming and software development. And I would say that the first 6 months were really amazing. I learned tons, but in the remainder of my tenancy there, it got a little slow. So after about being at this job for about 2 years, I had a bunch of friends from computer science that I had graduated with in college, and they were moving on to their second jobs and getting significant pay bumps. I was just sort of being complacent, and my salary wasn't going anywhere, and I knew that if I wanted to get a pay bump, what I know from reading articles and stuff like that, aim to jump companies to increase your salary as fast as possible. Of course, before I started interviewing, I wanted to talk to my manager to see if there's room for me to talk about my compensation, because I figured it's always better to ask than to not say anything at all, because otherwise your manager would never know. So in one of my one-on-ones with the manager at this company, I asked him if there's any room for us to talk about my compensation or my salary. I think he was a little bit off put by that, and he said, "We don't normally talk about salary until your work anniversary," which would have been another 6 months away. I knew that me being at this company any longer, I would be losing out on money at another place. Also, I wasn't being challenged at this job anymore, knowing that there are different technologies that I could be learning, and I was falling behind. So then, that's when I started interviewing. After about a month of interviewing, I had 2 job offers come in the same week, as well as a final round interview with Amazon coming up on the Monday after. Now, these 2 job offers wanted an answer within 48 hours, so I actually chose to decline the final round interview for Amazon, but you'll find out in a second that I regretted doing that. So the first of those offers was actually at the company I'm currently at. The second offer was from a smaller company that offered significantly more. I was weighing the pros and cons of them both, but this company that was smaller was offering significantly more, like 30% more than the first one. So I ended up going with them. So obviously before I took any of these offers, I took them back to my manager, who had previously not wanted to talk about giving me a raise or anything. I told him that I was going to be leaving, and he immediately went to our CEO's office and came back with a counteroffer. And within a 5-minute conversation with her, he came back and gave me a 35% raise and some sort of compensation for staying another 6 months. So you can take this either one of 2 ways. So obviously he's offering me more money, which is awesome. But another thing is that a month ago, he didn't even want to talk about doing this, but some reason they had this money sitting around, which was kind of annoying. Nevertheless, the company that I was going to take an offer from was still offering more money, which just shows how little I was being compensated at my first job. So I started my job at this new company, and it was small and kind of slow. And I remember telling myself that I wish that the other company, the one that I declined the offer from, had offered me more money, because that job seemed really exciting and the energy there was awesome. While waiting for the recruiter, I remember seeing this giant slide that goes from the second floor to the first floor. I remember seeing people, it was lunchtime, so people were, engaging in conversations, being very excited and being happy. And, I even saw some people exercising, I remember seeing someone walking in with cleats, or going outside to play frisbee or something. And I thought that was really exciting. That's something that I wanted, but the money just wasn't there. So the company that I did take an offer from, it was small, but The development team was still bigger than my first company, and I thought that was going to be enough. But sadly, after about 3 months of working there, there was some internal restructuring, and I got laid off. So I was hired to work on this project that was still in negotiation, and because of the internal restructuring, that project was dead in the water. And so I was let go. It was actually really sad, but kind of funny how I got let go. The person in HR came into my office that day, and she closed the door behind her. And 3 months in, all she had ever come up to me for was like, do you need any pens? Do you need any paper? Is everything okay with your computer? And so I was expecting something like that also. So she comes into my office and says to me immediately, like, okay, I'll just cut to the chase. Your position is no longer available. And in my head, I'm just thinking like, okay, so since that project is dead now, like, what project am I on now? And I think it finally clicked to me when she told me that she could find me a cardboard box to put my stuff in. It was really serious. I walked home that day and it was just kind of sad. Like, the rest of the day I didn't know what to do. So luckily for me, being a software engineer, it didn't really take me that long to find a new job. I think within 8 days of being laid off, I had 5 offers, which was really good, and so I had a bunch of things to choose from. So for my third job, I did end up taking a little bit of a pay cut compared to my second job, but it was still reasonable. And I ended up taking this company specifically because the job description had a bunch of things I was looking for, like Angular and cloud-based computing and blah, blah, blah. Very modern stuff. But when I got there, it was anything but that. That description was a complete lie, and I was stuck maintaining a bunch of stuff that was already broken. So if you've ever seen the movie Office Space, this company was exactly like that. So from now on in this video, I will refer to this company as Initech. So everyone at Initech was super unmotivated. People knew about broken things all the time, but nobody ever bothered to fix it. And it just seemed really bad. The turnover was so high that I actually got moved from software engineer to help desk, which was really demoralizing and really unmotivating. Alright, so I was now in help desk, super unmotivated, super, it was not going well. I was having a lot of personal issues in my life also, and so that was not a good time. So this is when I kind of just woke up and realized I was not in a good position, and this is really how networking really comes into play. So one of the first things I did was I went to a website named meetup.com and joined a bunch of programming groups. And so those helped me kind of get my feet wet, but I didn't know how far I was going to get. The one group that I joined that was probably the most significant was a group called RVA.js, RVA JavaScript. And as soon as I joined, I got a call from the organizer. His name is Galen. So he called me during my lunch break, and we were only supposed to talk for about 10 minutes, but he ended up talking to me for about 45 minutes, just because he was being really engaging and really helpful. So I was telling Galen about my situation, and he was really helpful. What he told me was really eye-opening. Pretty much what he told me was the longer I stay at this company, the bigger of a hole I would be digging for myself. While my friends in competition are out there learning modern and, desirable skills, I'm here learning 2003 technology, VB.NET web forms if you're familiar. The longer I stay here, the worse it would be for my career. He encouraged me to go to more tech talks and start learning stuff on my own that I wouldn't be learning on the job, stuff that would be useful or desirable from other companies. So that's what I started doing. So later that month, I actually went to a Richmond JavaScript meetup. And funny enough, the presenter there was actually one of the people that interviewed me from the company that I declined the offer from. So I stood around to get a word with the presenter, and if you watched my previous videos, the presenter was actually Clay, my current work dad. So during my first interview, Clay was actually in my code review, and he was probably the most vocal one there. He was actually roasting me the entire time, but not in a bad way. He was trying to be helpful or trying to understand why I did something specifically. So I remembered Clay clearly from this interview. So this point in time was about 8 months after I had declined the offer from this job. I went up to Clay. I was pretty much like, hey, I interviewed last year around January time. Do you remember me? Funny enough, he was just sort of like, excuse me, I don't remember you. That kind of broke me. But I was like, yeah, I interviewed last year and I got the offer. I was wondering if you guys have any openings right now, if I could interview again, blah, blah, blah. I think he was kind of flustered, or he was more or less trying to get out of there as soon as possible. But right before that, we ended up exchanging contact info. We decided to meet for lunch later that week. So this is what I mean by networking. If I had not made that first move to join these meetup groups, I wouldn't have met Galen, and Galen wouldn't have told me to go to these JavaScript meetups, and I wouldn't have met Clay, who is eventually going to become my entryway into my current job. And so that's why I think that networking is probably the most important thing that got me to where I am right now. So I got lunch with Clay later that week, and we kind of discussed like where I'm at, where I'm trying to be. So what I got out of my lunch with Clay was that in the January time there would be a position opening, and that from now till then I should be honing my skills, developing some piece of code or some application that I can show off during my interview, and that would really help me secure an offer. So then that's what I ended up doing. Every weeknight I would spend about an hour studying, doing some sort of online lecture, as well as following tutorials on doing like .NET and Angular code. It was about 3 weeks of doing this that I felt a lot more comfortable in like a more modern stack. The recruiter that I was previously working with was also in talks with me, and luckily enough, around December time is when a API developer position opened. Not exactly the one that I was talking to Clay about, but I knew that I wanted to get out, and I knew that I wanted to get into this job. So I applied for this API developer role, despite not having much skill other than these online videos that I was watching at night. So funny enough, since this is my second time interviewing at this company, they let me waive the code review, so I wouldn't actually have to show any of my API work, which was really fortunate for me because I didn't have much API experience, but I did have a sound base in, coding. They did bring me back in for a 3-hour interview with multiple people on the team that I was going to be working with, as well as directors and that such, and it was mostly behavioral, and I did really well, and I ended up getting the offer. And so that's actually how I am at my current job right now. So I started as an API developer for my current company in January of 2018, but the funny thing is that my team ended up needing some front-end work done also, so I actually did some Angular work for about the first year that I was here. During that entire time, I actually didn't see Clay too much other than in the halls. But then about a year in, my team's project changed and Clay ended up moving to my team. And now I sit 2 desks away from Clay and I bother him every day. And we make coffee together and that kind of stuff. So it's been really cool, the journey that I've made in the last 3 years, and being at like a really bad company and then being at a really good company. And I kind of know like what is out there and how much worse it could be. And I am never going to say that my company isn't good enough, because I know that there is way worse out there. So to wrap it all up, I first started my career at this really small company that wasn't really paying me as much as I should have been paid. And then I ended up taking an offer from another company that was probably overpaying me. But at the time of that happening, I actually regretted not taking the offer from another company. This company laid me off and I kind of went into survival mode and just found the first job that I could. This job ended up sucking, and I knew that staying there any longer was going to kill my career. And so that's when I started going out and doing some more networking, and that's how I actually ended up reconnecting with one of the developers at my current company, which he ended up being the entryway to get me to where I am today. So I'm really grateful for that, and I think that, a lot of this was luck, but some of it was my own determination. And so I think that's what's gotten me here. So my advice to you, if you're in the same position, is definitely start going out and doing more stuff. You definitely have more time than you probably think you do. And you probably have the resources to get you where you need to be. Maybe you just necessarily aren't taking the first step. My first step was joining meetup.com and just joining a bunch of programming groups. And that was sort of the first domino that got me to here. So that's the end of the video. If you have any of your own tips on how you got your current job, or tips that you're using to possibly get to a better job, add that to the comments. I'm John Heng, and if you like this video, consider hitting the like button and even subscribing if you want to see more videos like this. I put out a video every week, and I'd love for you to follow my journey. Thanks. Have a nice day.